Welcome to the Art of Character podcast. I'm Chris. For today's show, I'm joined by Wyatt, and he's going to talk to us a little bit more about his character development for one of my favorite characters, Malcor. So, hello, Wyatt. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today, Chris.
Absolutely. Glad to have you back. So, if you didn't join us before, we've got part one of this where Wyatt really goes into a lot of detail on Malcor's backstory, which is really pretty unique and interesting. So you should probably check that one out if you haven't already. But for this one, we're going to dive a little bit more into how Wyatt played this character and sort of role played him during the campaign and some of the kind of the key story arcs or kind of the key story pieces that happened throughout the campaign that involved Malcor. So back in the very beginning of the campaign, Wyatt worked with me, and it's a great thing to do with your DM. Is kind of talk to him about your character, what you're wanting to do, and if there are kind of any special elements you'd like to include or exclude. And Wyatt had a great idea about how to involve some of Malcor's backstory with what was going to happen in this campaign. He knew just a little bit about what was happening, but and just enough to kind of include this backstory without there being too many spoilers. What did you do right at the beginning of the campaign to bring the other characters in and kind of to involve your character's backstory?
So we did the Tomb of Annihilation, and the whole story behind that is some force is preventing resurrections, stealing souls, like things are out of balance in the realm. So Malcor's patron, Cthulhu, has taken interest in this because it's interfering with his plans in some ways. People don't know his plans, but they're messing him up. So I believe after they were filled in by their patron, who was Lorelei Silverhand, is that right?
Well, yeah, in this campaign, I think that's who we Lady Laurel Silverhand.
Lady Laurel Silverhand. Yeah, right. There we go.
I mean, you could call her Lorelei. I don't know if she would like it or not. But anyway, it's close.
I haven't been called that in a long time. So after this, he's like, oh, wait, the master. He calls us. He wants to speak to you all. Moments, please, moments. And then he begins to and then he spits his essence on the ground, and it's just this big black puddle. And all of a sudden it starts to swirl and hiss and bubble, and tentacles sprout from it, wrap around the party, and pull them in. And just imagine, like, you're standing on the beach and a big wave hits you and spins you around. You don't know where you are. That's a lot like what these characters would have gone through. Through the swirling liquid portal. Ugh. Yep, so they're all spit out into...
Well, you got them to jump through the portal, right?
Well, it was...
Or did it kind of suck them in?
It pulled them in.
Okay,
it pulled them in.
Right.
Yep. This was not entirely voluntary.
Yep. Not everything in D&D is entirely
exactly
voluntary. Although, while we always including as much player agency as possible, some story points like this, they were kind of drawn into this portal.
Yeah, nobody in their right mind would step into that puddle. It's nasty. It smells weird.
I don't know. Of course, got a high charisma, remember, so.
Yep, everybody's like, well, if he can survive it, well. So, this portal takes them to Cthulhu's, can call it throne world realm. It's where he resides, his seat of power. It's between realms, kind of hard to get to anyways, so takes them on a voyage. So first, if I remember correctly, he summons a water taxi, a gargantuan eldritch fish monster with eyes everywhere, tentacles, looks mean, but it has a little platform on its back for people to stand on. Right. So they take the taxi across the ocean. They go to
like an octopus snail kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
They pictured, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think they actually started out in Malcor's library, so they would have seen some of his co-workers, some of his
land in the library at the portal, come out of the library,
right.
Take this weird snail octopus taxi thing across this like inky black kind of foggy
sea. Yeah,
right.
Just very Lovecraftian. Yep. That's kind of the whole vibe here. So they go to this big island with this almost pedestal in the middle. It definitely looks like a place where you would summon or have an audience with the god, but it looks kind of ruined, dilapidated, pillars everywhere. Maybe some carvings. So they ascend these stairs to the top of the platform. And then Malcor stands there, says, "Behold, everyone, the master, he quickens, he stirs, he rises to greet you." And from the depths, you see a bunch of bubbles, like the water almost looks like it's boiling, and out from the water rises the man himself, the being himself. And he probably doesn't conform to gender norms as
Right.
eldritch being. Yeah.
Well,
And so rises out and
it's a creature without true definition.
exactly.
Right.
At least human definitions cannot apply to him.
Right.
So he climbs out and rises right up to the platform. But since actually listening to this guy speak would drive any mortal insane, like it's too much for their brains. It's too horrible, too horrifying. So he's got to use Malcor as a catalyst. So one of his tentacles comes out, stabs into the back of Malcor's head, lifts him up like a puppet. His eyes roll back. His jaw hangs open. "Mortals, do you know why I have gathered you here, using my disciple to bring you?" And then there would have been a little dialogue. It says, "Things are not right in that realm you call Faerun, and they are interfering with my grand design. This is most uncanny. Well, I have a task for you. Seek out the source of this disbalance. Destroy it. Root it out. Bring me a piece of it, if you can. Should it be physical?" And of course, the characters probably were like, "Well, hey, dude, you're kind of like evil. Why should we listen to you?" And then Cthulhu would have bent over, maybe put a clawed hand down and said, "Does this sound like a request to you? Because to me, it sounds like a demand." And then, of course, eventually, through some coercion, and yeah, maybe we should listen to the big scary octopus guy. Yeah, sure, we'll go along with it. He then, one of my favorite parts was, "Well, I have a few. A true being of power needs no trinkets, but every mortal needs a little help, I guess." So Cthulhu reaches his great hand into the ocean after the party's like, "Well, are we getting paid for this?" Of course. He's like, "Ugh." He reaches his hand down, pulls out a shipwreck, and takes it and cracks it like an egg, spilling all the loot, yolk, whatever you call it, spilling the loot before the party. And the loot would be magic items that would assist the party, maybe some kind of tailored to the party members, like sword for the fighter, axe for the barbarian, staff for the wizard, stuff like that, but nothing game breaking for their level, like no wand of wonder or luck sword, none of that. Maybe Malcor got a tentacled rod from his master. Very fitting.
It's a perfect item.
Right. A little bit of personalization. So after this, Cthulhu is not a very even though he's eons old, he's not that patient. He really wants things done right away. So, "You've heard my demands. You have received a piece of your compensation. Now go, root out this disbalance. I will be watching." And he probably takes his great hand, creates a giant wave of that blacky ink, washes over the pedestal, the beach, and the party would then once again be in this swirling black ink. It's kind of like drowning for a little bit in a wave. And then they would be spat out kind of back where they started. Like, kind of imagine you were inside of a bottle of water somebody was shaking up, and then they just took out the cap and spilled you out. And it just wave of fluid, there they are.
So I remember, and the party was, and if you're a DM and you've got a character that's willing to kind of go through and do a lot of this role playing and act out a scene for you, I mean, it's wonderful. It adds a lot of depth to your story. So the characters are kind of spit back out, and they're kind of in between a little bit in terms of how they feel about this. Number one, they've sort of got this this deal or this demand that they've been given. Now, whether they follow through with it or not is their choice. They don't really comprehend that yet. I mean, your choice, but you have to deal with the consequences. And then the other thing that happens though is they've got these magic items, so they feel a little better about that and a little beholden to this, a little beholden to Cthulhu, if you will. So, a patron. Is he a good guy? We don't really know, but this is all kind of part of the story. So, Wyatt, real world issues came up. He had to go back to school and essentially drop out of the campaign. However, he didn't have to completely and totally drop out of the campaign because there are moments when school let up or breaks or things like that when he was able to rejoin. So, how do we handle that?
So, Malcor, of course, is one of Cthulhu's emissaries, one of his workers, his followers, his librarian. Anyways, he has to check up on the progress of the party. He had other matters to deal with in the realm, some tomes that needed securing in a timely fashion, so he had to depart from the party for a little bit. Well, periodically, he's sent by Cthulhu to check back in, since he is the original contact. And I believe the first time I reintroduced him to the party would have heard a dull thud coming behind them. And then this two-legged frog fish monster, many eyes, of course, comes stomping forward. And then it stops just before the party, and you hear a muffled, "Whoa, taxi!" from the inside. The creature opens up its great maw, and out slides from its mouth is Malcor, all slimy in his glory. Says, "Thanks, keep the change." Throws a handful of coins, maybe a gem, into the creature's mouth, and then it stomps back off into the jungle.
Right.
And so...
Didn't sometimes Malcor kind of make an appearance, essentially just like a portal would open up, and he would just kind of black ooze and tentacles and just kind of come...
Yeah, I did a few of those, too, where Malcor would just fold out of some dark corner and say, "What's up, guys? Any progress on finding the disbalance?"
Right. And then you also had a similar mechanism for
exiting.
So we were coming up on the end of the session. So what did Malcor do?
So Malcor, hearing his master calling him once again, or realizing, oh wait, I need to go do that thing over there in Waterdeep. So Malcor jumps off of the building, doing kind of a backflip dive kind of move. And then party doesn't hear anything. A thud, nothing. Maybe somebody were to look over the edge of the building and they see one of those puddles that Malcor famously emerges from slowly dissipating and receding. So Malcor just portals in, does his thing, and then portals out at the end.
Right. Yeah. And so every time Malcor would come in, what are you telling the party about? Like why is he there? What is he doing?
Malcor would say, well, the master is curious about your progress in unrooting this disquiet, this disbalance in the realms. It is most interfering with his grand schemes, and, well, he doesn't like interruptions, as you can imagine. So, where are we in this? And of course, the party would fill him in, and this is how I get a fill in as to, okay, here's where we're at.
Sure, it's how you get an update.
Right, and one thing I'd like to add, so this can be used, so this method of kind of appearing and reappearing could probably be used with any character that has to leave for a moment and
sure.
and like a thief could maybe just slide in and be like, "What's up? I was just hiding in that barrel and I heard you guys walking by," and then the thief could just vanish. Or hey, if it's a real heroic type, he could just swing in from a light string off of a nearby rooftop. It could be a million ways to re-enter a campaign that it's like, whoa, we didn't know he was there. Or if it's a magic user, it's like, oh hey, he was able to portal right to us. That's cool.
Right.
So there's a million ways to do it.
Yeah, good point. You can always use that as a way for an NPC or a bad guy or a PC, anybody that kind of needs to come in and come out. You know, it's just a mechanism, and you can use that any different way. Good idea. All right, so this whole deal with Cthulhu caused problems with the party members. You know, so some of them were angry a little bit later, or just unsure exactly what did this mean, because they essentially had two patrons. So there was Lady Silverhand, who was kind of their main patron, and then there was also Cthulhu, and they weren't really quite sure about what the deal was. So originally, Cthulhu was like, well, bring me back whatever knowledge you can gain and any piece of any artifact or anything that relates to this death curse. And so that was the deal. That was kind of the thing. But party members didn't really know exactly what they meant. And as they figured out a little bit more about the story, they're like, I'm not sure if we want Cthulhu to have this. This could be, you know, disastrous. We give this guy this potentially world-ending device or mechanism or whatever it is that's leading to this death curse. So what did you do? How did you handle that?
Malcor, being... he's not exactly the most brawny, and he's kind of charismatic, well-spoken in his own way, so he would have said, well, I see you are conflicted in the Master's design, and some of you may not even remember or have been here when we had this encounter, but I will say the Master rewards those richly who follow his demands and punishes those harshly who go against it. So it's up to you, but I know what I'm going to do. Ooh, the Master's tentacle is tight and firm.
So just kind of, backing off of that a little bit, or letting them know that they had some sort of agency, really, right?
Right. They can choose.
Yeah, sure. And we're not really sure what'll happen. So there was that. All right. So as the story progressed a little bit, Malcor was possessed by a spirit.
So Malcor already is kind of possessed. He has a piece of his patron inside of him.
Sure.
So he sees his body as a temple, worshiping, bringing exaltation to his master.
Right.
Another being is trying to come inside of him and take place of that temple. A false idol, if you will. Malcor is disgusted, displeased.
Like, get out! Go! Don't get out of me! I did not give you permission to reside in there!
But eventually, Malcor realizes this being that has inhabited him will actually benefit him and help him further his goal of helping Cthulhu.
Aha.
So...
How so?
Well, I forget exactly the dude's name, but it was one of the frog...
We'll just say it was a spirit with some reptilian tendencies.
Frog spirit, kind of, yeah.
Not trying to do too many spoilers here for people who...
Well,
yeah, for any characters that might be playing in the campaign that sounds kind of familiar to this, and we're not really getting into all the details of the campaign and kind of everything that's going on to avoid spoilers a little bit. But, so possessed by a spirit with, let's just say, reptilian tendencies. Right?
Yes. So the spirit allowed Malcor to stick and climb on any surface with his walking speed. So basically, gravity... Whole body was a giant sticky hand. He could adhere to any surface and walk. So this, for a spellcaster, became immensely useful, because he could just walk up a wall, stick to the ceiling. He could be away from the action, or he could walk up to, say, a balcony or a hard-to-reach objective. This increased his versatility, to me, by like tenfold.
Plus, he's like a tentacly guy, kind of.
So it made sense.
Yeah,
right? The rules of physics no longer really applied to Malcor. He was kind of thrilled, and he kind of became friends with this creature, and this creature also imposed part of its will upon Malcor, which already kind of fit, and it's that it made him exceedingly greedy, to the point where.
So it's like almost like a little bit of Stockholm syndrome, if you will, right?
Right.
I mean, kind of befriending his captor a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yep, and there was a few instances where there was a piece of loot that Malcor coveted, and party member was like, but that would benefit me more.
No, it is mine. You will not touch it.
Like Smeagol-esque obsession over items that he coveted, because...
What kind of items would he covet, though?
Well, knowledge, of course, spell books, tomes,
Sure.
items that would help out a mage or a warlock. Like, I believe that they got some sort of necklace that allowed teleportation,
Right.
and Malcor was not nice about sharing that, just to
Right.
put it lightly.
Right. All right.
Like, some party member was like, hey, what if I use that for this tactic? And
No, it's mine. You may not touch Malcor's shiny.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about, and we talked a little bit about this in episode 1, so go back and check that out. But let's talk a little bit more about some of the spells that Malcor used. So we've got the mechanism for kind of how he comes in and out, and that's kind of like a portal. Mage Hand, which is really like a tentacly hand that reaches out.
right, extended tentacle, sticky
Right.
hand.
And Eldritch Blast was like this blast of black energized goo, right?
Yep.
So what were some of the other spells? And I guess really what we're talking about is giving life to your spells, role-playing your spells. So it's not just role-playing your character and what you do and what you say.
It's adding spice to it.
You can role-play combat, kind of describe, and really the role-playing here, it's not all about voices, but the role-playing and kind of the art of, what you can do here in combat and interactions is really just give more description of what you're doing, give more flavor, give more flair, have
Make
a little
it
fun with
memorable.
make it memorable, have fun. So what was Malcor doing with some of his spells?
So, Dimension Door worked a bit like his portals, his entry-leaving mechanic. Just, he would expel some of his essence, portal would form, and he was able to open it wherever he saw. But it was still kind of that inky black playing into that theme.
Right.
So one of my favorites was Hunger of Hadar, which is essentially a bunch of energy necrotic tendrils sprout from your character, centered from your character. And for this, Malcor's symbiotic piece of his patron, his parasite, if you will, was kind of becoming angry, trying to protect its host. So Malcor,
Oh no, it's coming. Stand back. Ah!
and just out from him erupts all of these angry, lashing, slapping tentacles, trying to leech life out of whatever they can.
Got to watch out for the tentacle slap.
Oh yeah, yeah. So just imagine dude laying back, kind of doing a crab walk, and out from his chest explodes a massive, angry, writhing tentacles that fills a 10-foot circle. I forget the exact radius.
Right,
Yeah.
So what about Evard's black tentacles?
So Evard's black tentacles, Malcor.
I mean, I don't know if there was a spell that was exactly written for Malcor, but this might be it.
Right. So Evard's black tentacles are, you create any surface you pick is covered in tentacles, lashing, restraining, bludgeoning tentacles. So a little similar to Evard's, except for he's letting the being free. He's letting a piece of his power out, and it is angry, it is hungry, it is, why did you let me out of my nice warm home? Screw you, buddy. So Malcor expels his essence. It slithers across to where he wants to cast it, and from there it would cover the floor in that inky black, and from it sprout all the tentacles. 20-foot slapping, rashing, groaning tentacles.
Right.
And Malcor is just cackling in hysterics.
It's about as Malcor as you get, really.
Yeah.
Let's talk about a few of the challenges of running Malcor, really, but of running a warlock. And so you're going to run into some limitations, right? The primary one really being spell slots. So you're going to have between 1 to 4 spell slots. And with cantrips, you start off with a couple like most spellcasters, and you do build up, but you really never have a lot of actual spells you can cast during any particular rest. So the deal with the warlock is they do recharge on a short rest, versus a lot of other spellcasters. Most of those are recharging on a long rest. However, it is limiting. So just talk about that a little bit.
Warlocks, they're great in short bursts. So say if you're doing they're very good at the beginning of a campaign,
Right.
because you don't need a ton of damage. But once you start to get towards the end, where it's much longer between rests, or you're fighting a lot more foes between rests, that's when a warlock really starts to struggle, because you really have to save those spell slots for when you need it. Yeah, like you can't always take a short rest in a dungeon. It's dangerous at times.
So you got to be creative, right?
Right,
And
exactly.
and you really have to kind of hold those a little bit and wait and see kind of what's going to happen. And however, you do have cantrips, which you can use, of course, over and over, and eldritch invocations.
Right, and with so if you're playing warlock, Eldritch Blast, Eldritch Blast, Eldritch Blast. I haven't done much with like Pact of the Blade, the melee variant. Imagine it's easier, but at least with the variant I did, Pact of the Tome, Great Old One, Patron, it's a lot. You're casting cantrips a lot, and especially in large, long boss fights, warlocks really struggle because you've only got 3 spells probably by that point, and then after that it's just Eldritch Blast, Acid Spray, Firebolt, whatever your other cantrip is. It's
Right.
You're not doing a whole lot of damage. In short bursts, small objectives, warlocks are amazing.
So one of the things that's interesting about some dungeons, there are certain mechanics where you are going to be limited in the amount of long rests you can take. Some dungeons, rules as written, you actually can't take long rests. And there are 2 in particular I can think of. I'm not going to name them here, just in case players haven't played these yet. And just spoiler alert. But so a warlock being able to short rest and recharge your spells, as long as you can convince your other party members that that's what you want to do, that could be an advantage, right? You are limited, but let's say you can't long rest, or you're limited in your ability to long rest in some way. Short rest, short rest, short rest, and you really could kind of, help save the party or carry the party through certain situations, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I do remember in this particular dungeon, I did keep, Leomin's Tiny Hut. Amazing for long rests in dungeons.
Perfect point, right?
Well, yes, but as a warlock, I actually limited me down by another spell slot, because I
Sure.
always had to keep that spell slot open to use Leomin so our party could safely rest.
And so you could even use that. Let's say you're in a really dangerous environment.
That
you could
too.
use that in, well, you can't really use it in combat, but
It takes 10 minutes to cast.
Right. So you cast that, and it can help you with short rest, so you can recharge, and so then you're back down a spell slot, but you get your spell slots back. You at least are starting with 2. But later on, you can go all the way up to the grand total of 4. And so we're talking about, with all of our rules here for spells and spell slots and Warlock, we're really talking about 5th edition, not the kind of newer 5.5 or the newer Dungeons & Dragons kind of revised 5th edition rules that have come out.
I do actually remember 2 more spells. So at one point, we were fighting a dragon, and he was casting a lot of ground effect spells. Like Malcor was getting roasted on the ground, and at this time I had
it was probably a breath weapon.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it was a breath weapon. I forget if maybe we were doing cards at this time with a free spell or effect each turn, or if I did have a fly spell, but Malcor needed to cast fly to get out of there. So he pulls back his robe, does his crab walk, and from his chest sprouted 2 tentacles, which then begin to spin like a helicopter. And Malcor takes off the flesh copter himself, the Apache attack warlock.
I mean, what could possibly go wrong?
All right.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was a super creative moment, and actually kind of grossed out and freaked out some of the other party members, which was kind of your.
We actually have the description is much more PG.
Right. So you could go with a non-PG description on that, but we'll just leave it there.
And then another part that really sticks out to me was he was stuck in this hallway where this gargantuan stone chariot, the exact dimensions of the hallway, is barreling towards him.
Right.
It would have crushed him. It would have wiped him out. And I believe
Like a stone juggernaut, I think.
Exactly.
Like that.
Yeah, like Malcor would have been creamed by the Zamboni. I believe the spell is called Meld with
Wait. Zamstony in this case, right?
Zamstoni.
Bump, right? They were in a stone hallway. It was a stone juggernaut. It's a Zamboni.
How punny of you.
Ba-ba-da-ba.
So Malcor casted Meld with Stone. So what this spell does is it lets you sink into any stone surface. You can stay there indefinitely. You don't need to breathe. But you can't see or hear anything that's going on outside. That is the only downside. Well, Malcor casts it. He turns into a puddle of goop. He sinks into the cracks in the rocks, and the stone bony rolls on past, and he is just fine.
In the case of a warlock, having spells that are known, and I mean, you may not use it very much, but that was an excellent example.
Right.
And then
you don't always want to burn all your spells in combat.
For like a spell like fly or levitate, maybe if you didn't have it, I'm assuming you had a scroll or something like that.
It was probably a scroll.
Yeah, I don't exactly remember, but I'm going to guess it was something like that. Yeah, Malcor brought a ton of flavor, a ton of really kind of interesting role play, and really kind of, I think, a ton of excitement and fun for the other characters that were involved. So if you're a player out there with your character, just think about that. How can you make it more fun, not only for yourself, but for the other characters involved in any way that you can, with your role play, or with your story, or with your backstory, work hand in hand with your DM to help them in kind of co-creating the story with you. Because really, D&D is ultimately about co-creating stories. It's no fun to kind of be on a campaign where you're railroaded and where you don't have a lot of choice and player agency. It's much more fun where you do have that choice and player agency. And so working with your DM can really kind of help them not only enhance a campaign, but make it more fun for you.
Make it more engaging. Yeah, exactly. Because the players are interested in telling the story too. Well, there was a trap where the party was on this cylinder, almost like a dryer drum that they got stuck in that started spinning.
Sure.
Well, Malcor, since he has sticky hands ability at this point, he was unaffected by the spinning drum.
Sure.
So he is just stuck to the wall. Well, everybody's getting tumbled, slammed around. Malcor's just like, hey guys, what's going on?
You need some help?
Right.
Yeah, that was a pretty good point. I wouldn't say Malcor, since playing him, I love the weirdness of the warlock and just how creative you can get with a warlock and evil. Warlocks are amazing evil characters, but the limiting of the spell slots.
They may not be evil, but their patrons don't always have the best intentions.
Right, and their patrons might get pushy if, hey, buddy, you aren't reaching your kill quota. I think I might have to start taking your powers away. Okay, fine. Oh, God.
Right.
If you really want to make a character like Malcor, just make it unexpected, make it memorable. Like, think, what would the party talk about for weeks after this?
Right.
And one of those moments for me was Malcor the attack helicopter. People just could not stop talking about his helicoptering skills.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a great moment. I have to agree. Thank you so much, Wyatt, for coming, and
It's been a pleasure, Chris.
Thank you, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us for what's this thing called?
It's just
No. What's the podcast called?
The Art of Character.
Thank you for joining us for the Art of Character.
Yes.
We'll see you next time.
Yes.
Out of character.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Art of Character podcast, where we publish new Dungeons and Dragons related content each and every week. If you want to support the channel, you can like, comment, or subscribe, or click below and you can join our Patreon, or click below and you can purchase something from our merch store, like this really cool t-shirt just like this. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us.